That is not gonna cut it. Neither is that, or that. So here's the first thing I want you to do. Get your panel temperature. The trick that I'm gonna show you guys today works 10 times better when your sealer and your base are flat. So before anything, I'm gonna show you guys how I make sure that I get the flattest finish possible leading up to my base.
To apply your sealer, it's important to apply it the same way you would apply your first coat of clear. So you see here, I'm holding my gun pretty close. I'm using a pretty heavy overlap, about 75%, and I'm moving at the same speed I would move on my first coat of clear, which is pretty fast. The reason for this is we don't want too much build in our sealer, just enough to level out any texture left behind from prep.
Now, in a case like this where you're doing a blend, I would always suggest to go ahead and throw a wet bed on your blend panels. This way, you can kind of level everything out, because where your sealer transitions to your paint, it's always going to be a little bit rough, and then your surrounding areas are also bound to have overspray on them. So this is basically just gonna level all of that out for you and give you a perfectly smooth surface to go ahead and lay your base coat. All right, we're ready for base. Now, just like your sealer, you wanna put this on nice and wet. Now, I know not every paint line is designed to go on this wet, especially on their first coat. So, what I want you to do is shoot it as wet as you feel comfortable without the risk of, getting any runs or having any issues at all. Because as we all know, if you go too wet with paint that's not designed to be sprayed so wet, there's a lot more problems that can occur other than runs. Now, I want you to do the same thing on your second coat. Go as wet as you feel comfortable going. And on your third coat, you would do your orientation coat, which is your drop coat. For this coat, the most important thing is to make sure that you're not throwing a bunch of dry overspray everywhere. So if you're doing your drop coat afterwards, if it feels rough, your paint is drying too soon. You're never gonna get a flat finish if you have dry overspray all over the panel. All right, our first coat is just about flashed off. So real quick, I'll show you guys how I put my second coat on. It's not as wet as my first coat, but it's still about a 3/4 wet coat. Like I said before, the important thing here is that you're not throwing dry paint all over your panel. So that's how it looks after my second wet coat. You can see it is not completely glassed out. Doesn't look very smooth, but we're gonna throw our third coat on once this flashes off. And then before we lay our clear on, we're gonna just run over it with a tack rag so you guys can see and hear how smooth that panel is. All right, I went ahead and turned our door so hopefully you guys can see it a little better. But we're on our last coat now, and I want to show you guys exactly how this coat should look. Now, this is your drop coat, your orientation coat, whatever you want to call it. You lower your pressure, you back your gun up, and you move nice and slow. The most important thing here is, like I said before, this material needs to stay wet. Even though it's a light coat, it still needs to remain wet. And how you know it's wet, you can tell by how your panel looks after you finish spraying it. So, for example, here, you see how it has almost a velvety, suede kind of texture to it? That is exactly what you want to see. If your panel does not look like this after your drop coat, you're not going to get the finish you're looking for. Now, once your base coat is down and it looks smooth and it sounds smooth, you see how you barely hear anything when I wipe my tack rag on this? And how I'm not picking up anything at all? Look, I'm gonna put this little clean section across the panel. You see how we didn't pick any paint up? You see how you barely hear anything and there's no paint on my tack rag? Well, if you can get to this point, I got good news for you. You are literally 2 simple tricks away from absolutely glassing your clear coat, because you don't have to change how you spray your clear at all to get this glass finish that I'm about to show you. Now, you guys saw in the beginning of the video, I checked my temperature panel, right? So here's the first thing I want you to do. Get your panel temperature up to 85 to 90 degrees. 84 there, close enough. 86 there, beautiful. That's the first thing I need you to do. Now, I know in the beginning of the video, I showed you the panel temperature was 72 degrees. And could we clear over that with no problem? Absolutely. Could we get a great finish? Absolutely. But if you're going for that mirror flat finish with little to no orange peel, you need to get that temperature up to 85 to 90 degrees. But that's not the only thing you need to heat up. Now, in this cup here, I have my clear, and only my clear. I did not mix my hardener in yet. Let's check our temperature. 63 degrees. That is far from optimal for glass clear. Now, how are we going to warm that up, you might be asking? Well, there's a lot of different ways you could go about it. I've even heard of some people putting it in the microwave. I wouldn't recommend that because I don't know how hot a microwave gets. And if you get it too hot, well, then your clear might start hardening and have the opposite effect that you're trying to get. So what I use is, this is a fish tank water heater. You simply plug it in and then drop this right in your clear, and it plugs into the wall, so no batteries or anything like that. I'll link this down low to Amazon if you guys want to pick it up. And the cool thing about this is I can set my temperature and my clear will not go above that temperature, and this thing will also hold that temperature. Now, the temperature that I'm going to recommend to you guys is 85 degrees, and I would not go above 85 degrees. You could even do 80. I'm going to do 85 because obviously I'm shooting 2 coats. I have all of my clear in there that I'm going to need for the job. So I want to heat it up once. I'm going to heat it to 85, like I said. And of course, in between coats, it's probably going to cool down to around 80 degrees, which is still optimal for laying absolute glass. And it's very important that you do not add your hardener in when you heat it up. You do not want your clear to start hardening in any way, shape, or form. So you heat it up, then you come back and you mix your hardener in. Now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and take my hardener. You could also heat this up if you want, but then your clear is going to cool down, and I just did it this way. When a few degrees over, I'm going to add this in now. Then I'll stir this up. You want to make sure you stir it real good. Now I'll throw it in my 2 cups for my 2 coats, and we'll make the glass happen. Now, I did have the booth nice and toasty while I was mixing my clear. So our panels are all around 90 degrees, which is awesome. This one's a little hotter because of where it's at in the booth, and being that it's a single panel, it's getting heat from the front and the back and the inside. So that's why it's a little warmer, but that's okay. as I mentioned earlier, we want our panels just a touch warmer than our clear. Now I'm gonna switch to a voiceover. I'm gonna explain to you guys why this works, how it works, and I'll share my gun setup, how I lay my first coat of clear, and how I lay my second coat of clear, just because I think a voiceover is a lot cleaner for this.
All right, guys. Here's why heating both your clear coat and your panel to around 80 to 90 degrees will completely change the way your clear lays. So clear coat only flows the way it's supposed to when the viscosity is right. So when the clear is cold, it's thicker. It doesn't atomize as well, and it doesn't have enough time to level before it starts to kick. The panel's the same way. If the metal's cold, it'll instantly pull the heat right out of the clear. So even if you spray it perfect, the clear starts to tack up too fast, and you end up locking in orange peel, dry spray, and texture. But when you warm the clear to 80 to 90 degrees, it thins it out just enough to atomize finer, so the droplets hit the panel smoother, they melt together easier, and they actually have time to level out before the solvent splash off. That's what creates that buttery glass flat finish that you guys are going to see at the end of this video. And when the panel is the same temperature, not cold, not warm, but right in that sweet spot, the clear doesn't shock cool on contact. Instead of freezing that texture in place, the clear stays open longer. That extra 10 to 20 seconds of flow makes a massive difference.
All right, we're all set for our second coat. Everything is looking great. We're definitely not glassed out yet, but that is fine. We're not going for perfection in one coat. We never do. We use the first coat to set up for our second coat. Now is when we're gonna slow it down, move closer, and turn that fan in just a touch.
Now, here's what happens when you don't control the temperature. If your clear's too cold, you get texture, graininess, and poor flow out of the gun. If your panel's cold, the clear basically tacks up instantly, and you'll see dry edges, patches of peel, or that rough, gritty look that never goes away or flows out. If it's too hot, you can actually make the clear too thin, and that could cause sags, dieback, solvent pop, and a bunch of other problems because it's flashing way too fast. But when you have everything in that 80 to 90 degree zone, the clear and the panel, everything works together. You get better atomization, better flow, better leveling, and almost zero orange peel, even before you touch the sandpaper. Which is why, I mean, a lot of the best guys I know, especially in winter, they always preheat the clear and the panel, because you're basically giving the product the environment that it was designed to work in. And we all know by now, when you're in the right environment with the product that you're using, the results are going to be better. And just the ease of working with the material in general is going to be better, which is why from the start I always preached, read that TDS, because they put everything there in black and white for you for a reason. So your job can come out like you're about to see.
All right, we gave everything about 10 minutes to flow out. Let's see how this thing came out. Here's our finished product. That is how you make glass. Look at that, guys. Doesn't get much better than that straight out of the gun. This is a job I can be proud of, watching it head out the door. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Hopefully this video helped you guys out. It's an extremely valuable tip in my opinion. I mean, come on. Look at this thing. Are you kidding me? Anyway, that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, if you got any value out of it, if you could drop a like, comment, or maybe even subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And it helps out the channel a bunch. Until the next time, peace.